last video that I'm going to do regarding confidence intervals for Nightingale, because we only do confidence interval for means, sigma known, sigma unknown, for proportions, and that's it, just for one sample or one population. So the only difference between the example that I did in the last video where we did the means and the statistical values were given to us. In this situation, let's assume the statistical values are not given to us and we're just given like a data set like this. And you're asked to find a confidence interval and blah, blah, blah. I don't have a whole problem. I just wanted some values. So the thing is that you don't have the statistical values given to you. You can, of course, calculate them, but that's going to make you go out of your way for no reason, because I'm going to show you that the calculator will do it all for you. And but obviously the first thing you have to do is input this into the calculator, which we kind of went through before, but I'll show you again. You have to input the data values into the calculator, otherwise it's not going to know, you know, what values to use. So stat and then edit is always where we input our set. So I'm in L1. I put all these in already. I don't want to show you all that because that's easy, right? But you know, if you're putting them in, you do 4.5, enter, you know, 22, enter. You just go one at a time and press enter. And then if I scroll to the bottom, this is on the 25th. So that means I have 24 data values here. So sometimes I do that as like a quick verification that I didn't miss one, because I should have the same number, right, as I do here. So I should have 24 values here, which I trust that I do. I'm not going to count them all. So I put them all in here already. And again, just in case, I'm not going to do it, but just in case, on the physical graphing calculator, if you want to erase the values in a list, okay, I'm not going to do it. Let's just say here, I'm going to scroll over to L2 and just show you real quick. Let's assume I want to like delete this list. I'm going to scroll up to L2 where it's highlighted. And again, this is for the physical calculator. I do not want to press delete. Do not. I want to press clear, enter. If I press delete, L2 will disappear and then I'll have L1 and then L3, which is not necessarily a big problem, but sometimes students freak out if they see that. You don't want to delete the list, you want to delete the values in it. So if I have values in it, I'm going to go up to highlight the actual, you know, L2 and then press clear, enter to clear the list and not delete the list, okay? Not delete the actual L2. I'm going to keep this here because these are these values. So, all right, so you got to put the values into your list, wherever you put it. Remember where you put it. Mine are in L1. Second, quit. I'm going to go second mode to quit and go back to my blank screen because that's comfortable. Back to stat. All my interval stuff is in tests. And then it doesn't matter, you know, which one I'm going to do, but let's assume, well, typically these, you know, sigma's unknown. So typically T interval for this stuff, because typically we don't know the population standard deviation, right? So typically we'll use T interval. But if they do give the population standard deviation, then you go Z interval. At the end of the day, the process is the same. So T interval, and now I'm going to go to data because I don't have the statistical values, right? I don't have the sample mean. I can calculate it, but I don't have it. Over to data, enter. Now I want data. See what happens when data is highlighted? It asks me for a list. Well, that's where I put the list of values. I put it in L1. If this were not here, and I would have to change that, on top of the number 1 is L1, on top of the number 2 is L2, on top of the number 3 is L3. So I would press second and whatever number corresponds to my list. So me second 1 to get L1. Frequency is just 1 because they're all repeated, you know, ones. So you don't have to change that for us at least. Confidence level, let's do a 90% confidence level. Calculate. Now here's the nice thing about this. Remember I said I don't have the statistical values. I could find them, right? We did one var stats before, but why the heck go through that? Because look, T interval gives them to me. So I have 24 data values, which is what obviously should match this. And the sample standard deviation and the sample mean is given to me also. So I don't have to go through one var stats and find it. I can actually just go through T interval or Z interval, depending on, you know, whatever situation. Here, I'll show you Z interval too. Whatever situation, you know, I have. Data, let's assume sigma is 2. Tell it where the list is, leave frequency 1, C levels 0.9. And then it tells me the sample mean and sample standard deviation, and it gives me my Z interval. So I don't have to calculate it. So that's why I like this too. Anyway, that's the difference between, given a data set versus given the statistical values. Other than that, that's it. That's all we're doing in this particular course here at Nightingale. So you have, again, recapping, stat, tests. Make sure you pass all this stuff with the end of tests. You want interval. Make sure you tell them interval has to be at the end of it because you want an interval. You'd be surprised how many people forget that. Z interval, T interval. Go back down. Z interval, T interval for means, right? If you're calculating a population, confidence interval for a population mean, whether sigma is known or unknown. And those are the only two where you have to worry about data versus stats. And then stat, test, and then down to one prop Z int if you're doing a confidence interval for a proportion. And that is it.